Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Shri Prabhupada ki jai. So today we are very fortunate. Today on Sunday Love Feast, we are having a very, very special devotee, Shri Prabhupada's dear disciple, His Grace Pancaratna Prabhu ji. Okay, I know the weather is cold, but Haribol cannot be so cold. Haribol! Loudly! One more time! So Pancaratna Prabhuji, he joined ISKCON in the year 1970, and he is disciple of His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So Prabhuji joined as a brahmachari, and then in the year 1980, later on he shifted to ISKCON Mayapur. He joined in ISKCON Canada, and he rendered various services in ISKCON New York. And then later on Prabhuji shifted to ISKCON Mayapur Dham. Over there for temple construction as well, Prabhuji contributed significantly. Currently, Prabhuji is very actively serving as GBC, especially for online preaching. Prabhuji is leading, and he is a source of inspiration. So we are very, very happy that today we have His Grace Pancaratna Prabhuji amongst us. So let's welcome Prabhuji by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. His Grace Pancaratna Prabhuji ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Okay, before we begin, जितने भी डिवोटीज यहाँ दर्शन कर रहे हैं, उनसे रिक्वेस्ट है प्लीज शांत हो जाएं. अगर कोई बात करता नजर आएगा तो हम उसको क्लोरोफॉर्म सुखा करके उसको बाहर कर देंगे. तो इसलिए जितने भी यहाँ हमारे दर्शनार्थी आए हुए हैं, प्लीज कृपया शांत रहें. अगर बातें की तो क्लोरोफॉर्म सुखा करके बाहर ले जाएंगे. ठीक है जी? जो बातें कर रही हैं, माताओं को बहुत बहुत शक्ति दी है भगवान ने बोलने की. शक्ति का दुरुपयोग ना करें, बातें ना करें, शांत रहें. ये देखो एक माता, ये देखो कितना बोल रही है, हमारे कितना कितना इनके पास टेराबाइट डेटा है इनके पास. शांति 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 शांति. हरि बोल. ओ ग्रीन सूट वाली मैया, ओ शांति शांति. श्री प्रभुपाद की जय. His Grace Pancaratna प्रभु जी की जय.
What's the timing?
1 to 2, 2:30.
All the way to
we go to 2:30. 2:30.
Hare Krishna. Prabhupada ki jai. What should we sing? Just cute. Should we? What do you usually do?
We usually do.
You sing Jai Radha Madhava?
You love to sing.
I mean, whatever is the accustomed. I mean, you usually sing Jai Radha Madhava or whatever?
Not of love.
All right. Well, I'll just sing normal. No. Thank you very much. Will there be translation of things, or everyone speaks English? You all understand English? I will speak slowly, and I will try to enunciate, because I am in the line of Amoga Lila, of the school of acting. So I learned in school that we must enunciate to be heard properly, especially on a stage, which now I'm put on. But because I'm accustomed to acting like a devotee, not actually a devotee, therefore I feel okay. And with the Moga Lila here to coach me, I should be good. So thank you very, very much. May I ask first if any of you are here for the first time, anyone here for the very first time? Newcomers for ISKCON Dwarka. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Anyone here just for the second time? Or third, fourth, like that, just new coming, let me put it that way. You're not a regular. Nice, very good. So I hope this has become, or will become, your regular Sunday event. Okay? Yes. I have to ask, are you all members of ISKCON? Yes? Yes? Sometimes people don't know, well, I'm not sure. What's a member of ISKCON? You are all members of ISKCON. Well, if you want to be a member of ISKCON, being a member of ISKCON is actually very, very simple. Sometimes people think, well, I've got to pay so much money and then I'll become a member of ISKCON, right? No. There's no cost. No monetary cost. To be a member of ISKCON begins with your desire. I want to be a member of the spiritual family of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. I accept, there's actually a statement that expresses membership in ISKCON. And it begins that, yes, I want to be a member of this international society. And I accept the teachings of Krishna as presented by who? His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, the founder Acharya of ISKCON. And, very important, I want to practically support the mission of ISKCON. I want to practically support the mission of ISKCON. Welcome, all of you, members of ISKCON. So it's very good to be in your company. I'm also a member of ISKCON. I figured it out. I fit the bill. Yeah, I want to be. Yeah. I do accept the teachings of Krishna as presented by Srila Prabhupada. Sometimes I struggle with the teachings of Krishna. How many of you also find that you sometimes struggle with the teachings of Krishna? You find it, well, in your heart you feel, yes, I accept, but in your mind you begin to think, well, really? Really? Well, you're not alone. Krishna is asking us to break out of our conditioning. We're all conditioned. When we feel like, I don't really get it, Krishna, that's our conditioning speaking. That's our habits, born out of lifetimes. Lifetimes, not just this life, but lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. Anadi, without beginning. So it is no wonder. Hare Krishna, Jai Jai Jagannath Subhadra Baladev, Jai Jai Srila Prabhupada. It's no wonder that sometimes we struggle with Krishna's teachings. because we are so conditioned to think the opposite, to think how we can enjoy the material world rather than giving pleasure to Krishna in this world. And when we leave this world, in his spiritual world. So, let's do some chanting. Since we have some time, I'm told, we have a little bit of time, so we can do some kirtan. There's a nice story about some devotees were asking Srila Prabhupada about doing a class on chanting. So they're asking Srila Prabhupada, somehow they put, should we do a class on chanting? And Srila Prabhupada said, you're not doing chanting? There's class without chanting? So there was all with Srila Prabhupada and here in ISKCON. Whenever we speak, we do kirtan. Before we speak, after we speak, we have kirtan, katha together. So let us do some kirtan, then we'll have some katha, and perhaps we'll do more kirtan. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Sarasate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Ashacharesha Tarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Radha Shri Vasri Gaura Bhaktarinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Radha Shri Vasri Gaura Bhaktarinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Advaita Radha Shivasri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna, hey. Krishna, hey. Krishna, hey. Krishna, hey. Krishna, Krishna, hey. Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, all together now. Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. One more time. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaur Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaur Haribo. Nitai Gaur Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaur Haribo. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jai Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bo, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Samapeta Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai, Jai Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. So we've decided one thing. We're all members of ISKCON, right? Okay. So let's decide one more thing. We all like to chant Hare Krishna. Hey! That's proof. That is, it's not in the thing there, but it's a test. You know, members of ISKCON, they like to chant Hare Krishna. Because ISKCON is also known as what? The Hare Krishna movement, right? That's who we are. We're the Hare Krishna movement. In the West, no one knows ISKCON. In India, ISKCON, ISKCON. But in America, what? No one knows ISKCON. Hare Krishna, yeah, Hare Krishna, yeah, I know, but Hare. Sometimes they may have heard about the Hare Krishnas. Yeah, you're the Hare Krishnas, right? Yeah. We're the Hare Krishnas. Because that's what we do. That's what we do. We chant. We chant Hare Krishna. And we hear about Krishna. We chant and we hear. And we serve. We serve Krishna. How? By getting other people to chant Hare Krishna and to hear about Krishna, right? That's our service. Our main service. There are, of course, building temples for Krishna, offering Krishna nice altars. These are all important services. But our main primary service, the first purpose of ISKCON, let's see, anyone here can recite the first purpose of ISKCON? Any good thing to memorize? I can only have in memory the first purpose, so I'm not claiming to be any great, but I did make an attempt to memorize. To systematically propagate spiritual knowledge to society at large, and to educate all peoples in the techniques of spiritual life in order to correct the imbalance of values in life and to bring real peace and unity to the world. To the world. That is the first and primary purpose of our ISKCON. That we must practically support, to systematically propagate. So there are many ingredients for a system of propagation. This was the great gift of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He began to envision and to put into place systems. And what was the most essential component of those systems? Who can say? What is this time that's coming now? Well, Varnashram is not so important. Say it loud. Book distribution, yes. Printing and publishing and distributing transcendental literature. The Brihat Mridanga. Amogalila and I and others are trying to expand that mridanga through the internet. The internet is the new media for distribution. But the content is the same. Krishna's words, especially Bhagavad Gita. This morning I was speaking to another group. They were the ISKCON Girls Forum, IGF. Do you have an IGF here in Dwarka? So this was in Rohini, and they wanted to know more about book distribution. So we were talking about how books, Shastra, is foundational to our ISKCON, to our Sampradaya. Now, again, as members of ISKCON, you are also members of the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. You are a member of a Sampradaya. ISKCON is one branch of this Sampradaya. And our Sampradaya is that goes back all the way to Brahmaji, to Narada, to Vyas, to Madhva, but then comes to us, particularly through first Madhavendra Puri, then Ishvara Puri, and then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Krishna himself, appearing in our Sampradaya, accepting our lineage, taking the teachings of our Sampradaya and bringing them into our age by his practical demonstration of what it means to be a devotee of Krishna today. By teaching us Harinama, Harinama, Harinama eva kevalam. Kalo nastyeva, 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 gatir anyata. Harinama. He gave us Sankirtan. Param Vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam. This is our sadhana. This is our path. This is our yoga. This is our life. Sankirtan. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not write books, but he instructed his followers, especially the Goswamis, to write extensively. He taught, he instructed, particularly Rupa and Sanatan. He gave them the full outline, and now he said, you go and you write. You compose these literatures. And thus began the tradition, the corpus of our Sampradaya, the literature that expounds on the Dharma the Yuga Dharma, the Dharma of this age, Harinam Sankirtan. The Goswamis wrote extensively. They were followed by other acharyas, especially Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, who wrote extensively. And then up to closer times, Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur himself wrote so much. So the principle, the basis of literature as being the foundation of our sampradaya has been established. Now there are many other groups in India today, many gurus, many communities, many very eloquent speakers with many followers. But almost all of them are presenting their own conclusions and ideas very nicely, well developed, eloquent, clever, convincing even. But they do not come to Shastra. How many of you have, there's a little device that I don't know if you sell it here, the little box with Prabhupada's. So, one wonderful devotee, some maybe 3-4 years ago, took all of Srila Prabhupada's lectures and conversations and so on and organized them and put them onto a simple one USB stick, and then he got a nice little device. You just plug it in and you just turn it on and you're listening to Prabhupada. How many of you have one of those? Save up, get one. They're not too expensive, I don't think. Really worth having. I mean, it's one of my personal treasures, you could say. Because all I have to do is just flip a button and I'm listening to Prabhupada. And one of the things that I have been struck with, that is how much Srila Prabhupada simply quoted Shastra. He would speak, he would talk, but every other sentence practically, I mean, just this verse and that verse and this one and over there, everywhere he would bring out the foundation of Shastra to show us it's not me. Yes, we feel that he was so eloquent, and his own words, Guru Mukha Padma Vakya, they're so relishable. But he wanted to teach us that the foundation is Krishna's words, the foundation is the Shastras. So the distribution of these Shastras is core to systematic propagation of Krishna consciousness, of spiritual knowledge. Authoritative knowledge, not invented or concocted, but Krishna's own teaching. So these Shastras are fundamental, and the distribution of them is such a great service. But we should also help people to read them. Distribution is the first step, but a really systematic program begins with the distribution and then continues with the education and the assistance to read, to study, and understand. Srila Prabhupada's presentation of Bhagavad Gita is not the easiest literature. Would you agree? Yes. Not so easy. Srila Prabhupada was faced with a great challenge. He had so much to do in so possibly little time. I mean, he was already 69 when he arrived in New York, but 70 years old when ISKCON began in 1966. Now at the age, I am now 71. And I'm not making lots of long-term plans. I'm not making like, I got 50 years to do that. No, I don't have. I mean, I don't know. Some people do live to 120, but I'm not counting on it. I'll put it that way. So Srila Prabhupada needed to do so much with nothing. We were talking a little bit this morning about Srila Prabhupada and what he experienced when he came to New York City in 1965. How many of you have visited New York City? A few, not many. So I didn't grow up in New York City. I grew up in what's called upstate New York. It's further up in the state, same state, but some several hundred miles away. But as you mentioned, I entered ISKCON first in Toronto, Canada. But very shortly, because I'm not a Canadian, I'm an American citizen. Although I attempted to stay there, I couldn't get the proper visas or residential permits. So I was in Buffalo, New York. And after some time, after 6-7 months there, I was asked to come and help in the New York City temple. I came there in 1971. Srila Prabhupada was very kind to accept me as his disciple, and I stayed. I stayed there in New York City. So I had occasion to visit the areas that Srila Prabhupada stayed in when he came to New York. Now when Srila Prabhupada came to New York in 1965, now here's another question for everybody. And I'll put it in the negative now. How many of you have not read Prabhupada's Lilamrita? Too many. Okay. Now let's ask another question. How many of you have not seen the Hare Krishna movie on Prabhupada? Hare Krishna, the mantra, the movement, and the Swami who started it all. How many of you have not seen it? Okay, that's a little better. But let's, if I come here another time, let's there should be, we're all. See it, read it, learn it. Why should we learn about Prabhupada? Who is Prabhupada to you? This is a question. I mean, he's my spiritual master. He initiated me, so I have that relationship. I'm the only one here in this room who can say that I was initiated by Srila Prabhupada. But I see a number of devotees here who are initiated. So someone initiated you, other than Srila Prabhupada. And many of you may be actually aspiring for initiation from someone. So you have gurus, right? So where does Prabhupada fit in with you? Now, Srila Prabhupada, to me, he initiated me, but he also had his guru who initiated him, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And although I revere and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Prabhupada. In every way, I can't say that I have a deep relationship. I have a family relationship because he is my Param Gurudev, he's the Gurudev of my Gurudev, he's my grand spiritual master, grandfather, like that. So I have like a family relationship. But Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, he's so prominent in my life. So who is he to you? And why should he be someone for you? What is your relationship? We talked about it this morning with another group, and we were discussing how, well, what is the title that we have for Srila Prabhupada in ISKCON? Founder, Acharya. Okay, so there are two words here. Founder and Acharya. Now, the term Acharya has many meanings. Acharya, and they're all very important for us. In this context of being the founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada established that he was both the founder and the Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Our society. You all agree? We're all members of ISKCON, right? So this is our society. So, what does it mean for him to be the Acharya? Founder, okay, that's clear. He founded, he established it, he made it. But he's not just the founder, he's the founder Acharya. He's the Acharya. Now, some of you may have some experience with other institutions. Perhaps in our own sampradaya, the Gaudiya sampradaya, or perhaps in some other lineage. And generally, have you found that the institutions that you're aware of, generally speaking, they all have some sort of Acharya? Have you seen that? Even in our Gaudiya sampradaya, most of the various mutts, they have an Acharya. And what happens when that Acharya leaves this world? Generally speaking, what happens? Another Acharya is appointed, right? So who is the Acharya for ISKCON today? Srila Prabhupada. But he's not here. How does that work? This is where Srila Prabhupada fits with all of us. We cannot anymore, you cannot, I was fortunate, but you do not have the ability to approach him physically and ask him, initiate me. Some people say you can, but I disagree. I mean, this is a group that probably has heard of different things. Anyway, there are some people who say, no, he's transcendental. He doesn't have to say, I accept you as my disciple. He doesn't have to say it. I don't understand it. How can somebody assume that Srila Prabhupada is initiating them without him saying yes? Anyway, they have their arguments, but I won't get into that. So you can't go and say, please initiate me. But you can go and say, please accept me as your disciple in ISKCON, as a devotee of your shiksha. Please be my Acharya. Be my Acharya. in my life. You can do that. And I suggest you do. And as you do that, it then becomes more and more important to get closer, to know his Acharya service. Acharya, as we said, has different meanings. So Acharya also means one who teaches by example. So Srila Prabhupada's teaching by example. We have his books, his teaching by writing. We have his ISKCON, which is his creation to teach us through systems. But we also have accessible, we are so fortunate in this age. I don't think it's difficult. Although Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had many biographers, there were quite a number, but only some. I've heard some people say that there was maybe 100 or more biographies written about Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but we only have a few now. We have Chaitanya Charitamrita, we have Chaitanya Bhagavat, we have Chaitanya Mangal, a few more. But with Srila Prabhupada, we have, what, 600 recorded lectures or something like that? Hundreds of what is about 50, 60 hours of video of him, various ways. And then we have the memories of those who were with him. We have biographies, probably 100 biographies already. Different aspects. So much we have in order to learn and to come closer to Srila Prabhupada as our Acharya by learning how he lived, how he embraced, how he related with Krishna, to learn of his love. There's a beautiful song, you might have heard this song, by my godbrother Mangalananda. When I see his love, I know I have a long, long way to go. To feel the love he is feeling. We can see his love by hearing about his life. When he arrived in New York, he, as we know, those of you who have read, will remember that he didn't know anyone, except one person. He had one contact. Other than, he didn't actually know the Agrawals where he stayed. But he had this one contact. I don't know if he'd met Dr. Mishra at any point or just corresponded, but he knew one Dr. Mishra who had a yoga ashram in a little north of New York City. And Dr. Mishra helped him initially and gave him some accommodation in New York City. He, as you know, he started and he landed up first in Butler, Pennsylvania. Spent about a month there just trying to understand where he was. Just what is this place? But he knew that he's not going to spread Krishna consciousness. His goal from the beginning was New York. He commented once, different way. First of all, the first premise was, New York is the most important city in the world. Now, being a New Yorker, Now, Delhiites may say, I don't know. Delhi is kind of... okay. Delhi may become the most important city of the world. That is a fact. But right now, New York can legitimately lay claim to being the most important city of the world. So Srila Prabhupada, he felt that. So let me go to New York if I can. I mean, London, during 1930s, London was it. It was the seat of the British Empire. But that went. And New York became the seat of the American capitalist empire. So New York City, he went, but he had no place to stay. Dr. Mishra provided a little office. It wasn't even an apartment, it was just an office. And there was not even a shower or a bath. There was a bathroom, but it was like, just a toilet or something. I mean, somehow he managed. And somehow through his content, some people began to come to hear him. But most of the time, as he describes, he was simply loitering on the streets, going here and there, observing. There's that wonderful story about him, how he described, or not he described, but someone who was discovered that had met him during this time and had sat down with him on a bench next to the Central Park, I believe, and struck up a conversation. And Srila Prabhupada, he remembers Srila Prabhupada saying, yes, we have temples, we have books, we have devotees, thousands. Yes, you do. Yes, just time is separating. Time is separating. That was his confidence. But at the time he did not have books. Oh, he had his books. But he had no temples, he had no members, and a little closet practically to sleep in, where one day someone, he suspects the cleaning person, breaks in and steals his typewriter and his tape recorder. And I'm 71. I have a bit of strength, a bit of energy, so I say, well, okay, But still, it's very hard for me to imagine doing what he did at this age. At this age. But he did. And he opened himself up to the will of Krishna. You've hopefully also remember his poem on arrival in the US, which concludes, I am a puppet in your hands. Now, if you like, make me dance, make me dance, make me dance. And Prabhupada, Krishna adjusted the strings. Someone came and said, oh, Swamiji, I'm leaving for some time, going to San Francisco, and I have a place down in the Lower East Side. You could stay there. Now, the Lower East, what I was talking this morning, I was trying to describe what is the Lower East Side of New York like, okay? No one could really give me an analogy to Delhi, what would be a similar place in Delhi. And let's test you also if you know what the word bum means in not, there's two meanings of bum. I don't want the the bodily part one, but there is a term in America. The street that this place was on was called the Bowery. Okay, Bowery. And there's a term in New York, and it's kind of known in America called Bowery bums. Okay, Bowery bums. So I was trying to explain what a Bowery bum is, and a Bowery bum, or any bum in that context, is someone who has no money, no home, doesn't wash, takes a bath, never, is addicted to generally alcohol, and sleeps on the streets, and hopeless case. That's a bum in American terminology. And what kind of, that term is, used, but here, this is Bowery bum, okay? The Bowery is where the bums hang out. That's where that was their, place to kind of, it was the Bowery, that road at the time, and still to some extent, was primarily a place where people sold restaurant equipment. It was just lined up with stores to sell. And at night, it was, everything was closed and quiet. There were no restaurants and people walking around and everything like that. So it was a convenient place for these people to just find a sidewalk and a place to just collapse after drinking themselves to unconsciousness. It would not have been unusual for Srila Prabhupada going to that place that he went to stay in, on his way to have to step over the unconscious body of a man who hadn't washed in centuries or whatever, stinking like anything, lying in his own vomit. Because if you may not have seen, India may not be so bad, but if you drink too much, you get so intoxicated, and it all comes out. And they just, lie down. And this is Prabhupada is going, step over or whatever to get up into it. This is the place that he was willing to go for Krishna. And still no, at least there was a place. There was a crazy man living there as well. At one point, tried to kill him. But Krishna was making him dance. Just recently, I met someone who lives in the building that is called 26 2nd Avenue. That was the place where our first center was. So she lives there. And we have programs still there. ISKCON still operates 26 2nd Avenue. Okay, so if you ever get to New York, please make a pilgrimage and see 26 2nd Avenue, Matchless Gifts. So anyway, we still have programs there. She came and we struck up a conversation, and she recalls, because she grew up in the same nearby areas and had similar experiences with not just bums, but addicts and drug dealers and so on, and criminals. So she remembers one day driving with her father down the Bowery, and out of the window, this must have been in 1966, I guess, and she sees, walking on the street, she sees an elderly man dressed in orange, walking down, and she remembers he was doing this. He was playing symbol, she called them finger symbols, and must have been chanting. He didn't have a Harinam party with him. He was just doing Krishna's bidding, chanting, wandering. And then Krishna sent people. First he sent first he sent Mukunda, and then Hayagriva, and then they got the 20. So everything started to just fall into place, one by one, not without difficulty. There were strokes, there were so many difficulties were there, but every step, again, Krishna was so studying this, learning about this, seeing his character, seeing especially, I feel, that of all of the qualities that Srila Prabhupada taught us through, it was his love of Harinam, his love of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, his love of Kirtan, that I personally feel most educated by. That's the quality that I aspire for. I want to fall in love with the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. I want to experience that ecstasy that comes when we chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, with sincerity, with attention, with love. Because I know from Srila Prabhupada, I know what I can see how he experienced this. He didn't need anything to experience the ecstasy of the Maha Mantra. As I was explaining, he would walk down the street chanting. I heard another story when he was in Radha Damodar, or perhaps in the other Vamsi Gopal temple before that, how some devotee was talking about how regularly he would see Srila Prabhupada walk out with his danda, and he would go across the Jamuna where it's sandy, and he would plant his danda in the sand, take out his kartals, and do kirtan, and just kind of circumambulate his danda and do kirtan. And he was a lover of kirtan, and he knew that this kirtan would save the world. But he also knew that kirtan alone, without katha, without understanding Krishna, will not produce that love. To get the love, to develop our love for Krishna's holy names, we have to know a little bit about Krishna. We have to understand our relationship with Krishna. We have to understand a bit about who Krishna is. And the best way is to hear from Krishna, telling us who he is. And where does he tell us who he is? Bhagavad Gita. Throughout the Bhagavad Gita, he's telling us, this is who I am. Aham sarvasya prabhavo mataksma. He's telling us. He's telling us, I am this, I am this, I am this. He's just revealing himself fully in the Bhagavad Gita. So to distribute Bhagavad Gita means to help people find who is Krishna, who I am, what is my relationship with Krishna. And then to give them, that's the sambandha, to give them the abhideya and tell them what is the prayojan also, where to be with Krishna, because that's also what Krishna tells us in Bhagavad Gita. Where to go, what to do. This is who I am. This is where I am. This is where you must come. And this is how you get there. It's all there. Satatam kirtayanto mam. Kirtan. And we, by distributing these books and by engaging people in the holy names, I know that many of you, or all of you, I hope, are preparing yourselves or have already started to engage in distributing Srila Prabhupada's books during this special marathon of book distribution, which I think has already begun. Yeah. So you hopefully are making some plans, and I hope that you will, as you distribute the Bhagavad Gita, you also distribute the holy names of Krishna. Ask people, chant. It's easy. Hare Krishna. Can you say Hare Krishna? You know?
Hare Krishna.
Yes, you can. So the same thing, when you meet someone, can you say Hare Krishna? Of course, in India, everyone probably has already said Hare Krishna once or twice. In America, it's different. In America, when we go out and we ask people to chant and say Hare Krishna, for many of them, it's the very first time they've ever said those words, Hare Krishna. It's a great feeling to hear someone for the first time say Hare Krishna. So this is our movement to systematically propagate spiritual knowledge and to teach the techniques of spiritual life in order to what? Correct the imbalance of values. Srila Prabhupada's vision was very, very broad. His vision was that by the influence of kirtan, people would wake up and realize that they've got things upside down, that it's their spiritual life which is most valuable. And they will begin to practice in whatever way is easy for them, and that gradually they will open up to hearing further and further. They may start in a sort of, arithmetic. Prabhupada used to speak about the various religions of the world in terms of various stages of mathematics, that you start in a sort of simplistic way and then you go further. Bhagavad Gita is somewhat advanced. That's why it's not so easy for many people to really understand it. We need to help them. I don't know if you have a program for collecting contacts and following up, offering them courses. This is important. So let us all celebrate our relationship with Srila Prabhupada. He is our Acharya for all of us. And as his disciples, either a few of us have received initiation, but all of us can see ourselves as his disciples through his teachings. Let us continue his movement. So, we have a little bit more time, I'm told, where we could maybe answer questions, or if there's something you would want me to talk about that I haven't talked about, I could try to do that. Is that okay? Okay. Hare Krishna. So, comments, questions, additions?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dhanapranam, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for this interesting lecture in glories of Srila Prabhupada. Prabhuji, I just had a request. If you could please narrate the story how you met Srila Prabhupada for the first time, how you came to ISKCON.
Okay. Well, I'm a member of a generation that is generally called the baby boomers. We're the baby boomers. My parents grew up in the Depression in America. There was World War II. Although luckily my father was not, let's see, how old was he? Yeah, he was in college. He didn't get into the war. He did, because he's a medical physician and scientist actually. So he did join the army, but in order to, he did research. That's where I was born, on an army base. But we were called the baby boomers because after the war, men and women were free to have children. Let's have babies. During the war, it was like, we don't know what we're going to do. Men were, anyway, it was not so easy. But once, and it was a boom time in America. The economy was doing so well. But I grew up in all this, so I was quite comfortable. But like many of my generation, we looked around and we were not happy. We didn't see that our parents were, and that society in general was going in the right direction. As many of you know, around that same time, America decided to enter into a undeclared war with Vietnam. And at that time, it was, they had what's called a draft. And you know what a draft means? Conscription. That means that young people, 18, just 18 years old, you had to register for the draft and you could be called up to serve in the army or the military without your permission. You were forced. You're forced to join, to get a gun and to go to war. There were a few tricky ways to get out. I just disappeared. Changed my name, went to live, I went to live in a desert, not desert, but arid part of New Mexico, and I was a part of what you would know and generally was known as the hippies, right? But we didn't like that term. That was for the what we call the straight people to use. We called ourselves freaks. That was our term. We were freaks. So I was such a freak, and I had embarked on, to satisfy my parents, I went to college. Went to a college called Antioch, and that was, I could say, I was relating this the other day. And do we have time for me to fully tell this story, or should I? Okay. So, those of you who have read the Lilamrita may remember a time in 26 Second Avenue where Srila Prabhupada is translating again, because the other manuscript is stolen, the Bhagavad Gita on a typewriter. Okay? So Gargamuni arranges, I'm not sure where the idea came from, I have to go and review the story, but they get a dictaphone, which you've seen, if you go to his quarters, you've seen this machine, and he holds it in his hand, right? Dictaphone. And the story of that dictaphone is nice, how Gargamuni went and he somehow gets the money. It's expensive. It was, it was the equivalent today of maybe $600 or something. And it was an expensive machine. And he spends an hour learning how to use it and so on. And he comes and he brings it to Srila Prabhupada. expecting, okay, now I'll teach Srila Prabhupada how to use it. And Srila Prabhupada says, put it down. And yes, and then I'll say, no, it's okay. No. And Prabhupada just starts using it. He just knows everything about church. So now he's and if any of you, I use dictation myself, and when my typing at best was about 50 words a minute. Okay, when I was now I can't type so well, but I could type 50 words a minute. Really good typists can type 80 words a minute on good machines. But when you dictate, I've measured, I can dictate at 120 words a minute. So Prabhupada is zipping away, the tapes are piling up, and the devotees are trying to transcribe these at, he's dictating at 120 and they're typing at 30, and it's backing up. So one day, this young man named Neil shows up, and says, well, I'm from Antioch College, and in our college there's a system that students have to spend one semester. They had 4 semesters instead of 3, so they have to spend 1 semester doing some sort of work that is somehow related or something to their field of study, and just go out, and be like interning or whatever. So I figured, let me find some spiritual place I can do something. So, you got anything for me to do? And they said, well, what do you know? What can you do? I said, well, I'm a good typist. I type about 80 words a minute. And, do you know how to transcribe? I said, yeah, I've done that. Yeah, I know transcription. Krishna! You've sent him, right? They set him up, next to Srila Prabhupada's room, and he's typing away. He's clearing out tape after tape. So anyway, the semester's finished, and he goes back to Antioch College, and I was at Antioch College. That's where I was given, I looked at different college, because I didn't want to go to college at all. I was thinking, let me just forget about all this. I'll just, But my parents, they're intellectuals. My father's a professor of medicine. My mother's a professor, so they, at least try it out, try it, So I said, okay, and then I picked this Antioch College. Is kind of this very liberal, very. When I arrived in Antioch College, you get they had dorm rooms, right? But they had one building which was condemned. It was supposed to be torn down, but they let artists use it for studios. And so I grabbed one of those rooms and moved in there. I was just, anyhow. Later on, I just moved into the woods, and I lived in the woods. But, so anyway, I attended, Neil started these Sunday love feasts with kirtan. And so I went. So I would say, indirectly, I guess I met Srila Prabhupada through Neil and the kirtan. But it didn't, he hadn't absorbed, he hadn't really absorbed the philosophy very much. I went to talk to him later, what's this all about? And he started to talk about some Buddhist ideas and so on. I couldn't follow it at all. And then I went on my way. And I gave it my year for my parents, and didn't go to a single class. No, I did. I went to 2 classes. But I didn't do anything. And then time was, some people had a little bus, and they were off to go to find a place to live in the, and be freaks, real freaks. So I jumped in, and off we went. And that was my second time. So the second, then on the trip, we're driving along, and this is around the time that that George Harrison, the Hare Krishna mantra came out. So we chanted Hare Krishna for 3 hours on that trip. And yeah, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Just know what we were doing, but it was good. Time passed. So many adventures. And during those adventures, I started to develop more of an interest in the teachings of Jesus. My version of Jesus was a hippie or another freak. And he actually was, in many ways. He was not, he rejected society. He did. He rejected the society that he was in. He was pointing to leave. Give it all up. Come with me. That was his message. So what was he teaching? He was teaching love. Love. And that's what we were not seeing in society. We weren't seeing love. We were seeing hate. We were seeing war. On top of the Vietnam War was the civil rights movement. And we were seeing the hatred of some people to others simply based on their skin. Simply based on the color of their skin. Filled with hate. Filled with hate. And we saw hatred everywhere. We saw superficiality everywhere. Jesus saw that too. And he preached love. Now, of course, my version of Jesus, as I said, was kind of, and I felt that, if he were here today, he would also smoke pot. Yeah. Wouldn't he? I mean, which is what we did. So my version was quite distorted, but still it was developing this idea of spirituality, this idea of God, this idea of serving God was developing in me. And I was with another man who was sort of a guru figure, and he thought he was Jesus, but anyway, that he was teaching this type of thing. So I end up, our little band, we end up in Toronto, Canada, because we'd heard a rumor that they had legalized marijuana. And so it wasn't true, but anyway, we thought, whoa, let's go. So we were there in Toronto, and I managed to get a permit to work. But my brother, who was with me, and this other man who we were traveling together, they didn't get a permit, so they went back to the US to work, to get some money. We didn't want jobs, but we needed a little money, so we'd get odd jobs here and there, right? And they couldn't get any odd jobs. So the idea is, make a little bit money, we'll come back together, and then we'll be back on the road and see where it goes. So I took up a residence in a boarding house which happened to be on the same street as the Hare Krishna temple. So I used to go, I'd gotten this job, I had hardly ever had jobs in my life, but this was, I was a carpenter. I was helping nail things together. And so on the way to work, I was passing by this place where these people were dressed in robes and doing different things, and I had this sense that these people must be very spiritual. So one day I decided to go and share with them my spirituality and all the wonderful things and experiences and mystical things, lights that I've seen and all kinds of things, and I was going to share with them the teachings, and I'm in a preaching mood, whatever. And first I listened, and I listened more, and I listened more, and I just was pulled in. And they told me, try this mantra. Try this Hare Krishna mantra. Now I had already developed a practice of praying to Jesus and Jehovah, and I had a little mantra that was this guy had taught. So I went to a park nearby, and I sat down, and first I repeated my Jesus prayer, whatever, and then I chanted, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare. I chanted for a little while, and I felt something. Chanting my Jesus, felt pious that I was doing something. I didn't have any actual, there was no real, I'm sure many of you, most of you have felt at some point as you're chanting, there's this feeling that I am spirit. Feeling it, actually perceiving yourself to be spirit, not the body. So by Krishna's grace, I felt something. I went back, I was observing, I said, because I had developed the conception that our purpose in life is to serve God. But I had no idea what that, how to serve God really. And I saw the devotees serving God with every action, singing, eating, cleaning. And when you say, how did you meet Srila Prabhupada, then I think my first the meeting was when I started reading his words. And my impression was, as I look back now, that I felt, here is someone who knows God. Who knows God. I have idea of God, but he knows God. So, a few weeks later, and I'm in the temple. But that was kind of but the first physical meeting came when I was initiated. So I came to New York in 1971, and I was part of it's a period of July 1971. There was about 6 days, I think, of initiations. There had been a backlog. Srila Prabhupada had been in India. He'd actually not been so well for some time. He'd stopped initiating by letter, etc. He was asking people to wait, and then he returned. And now it was like, first I think he was in LA, and there was 4 days of initiations there. He went to Boston, a couple of days there, and now he's in New York, and people are from Toronto and Pittsburgh and Washington and this place and that place. They all are converging on New York for initiation. So I was in those days, and that was my first meeting. But my first interaction with Srila Prabhupada. Do we have time? Yeah, we're going to have to go. Yeah, because we have to go to Vrindavan. So I'll just very quickly tell you about my first interaction with Srila Prabhupada. Because that first meeting was not so. It was a brief encounter, and I can't say that it made a huge impression on me. Some devotees, when they were initiated or they first saw Srila Prabhupada, it was like, whoo, he's floating on air, and I can't believe it, he's covered with light. I wasn't so fortunate to have that kind of experience. I was not so fortunate. 1 year later or so, Prabhupada comes back, and I won't tell the whole story, but I had acquired video equipment, black and white video equipment. Some of you may have seen these black and white videos of his lectures. So my mother gave me the money, I acquired these, and I'm using it first time, Prabhupada, okay, like this, I've just got my tripod and my camera. Of course, it was much bigger and everything than this. But, and I was in ecstasy. because, I mean, ecstasy may be too strong, but I was really happy because it was silent. And, Prabhupada didn't like noise, click, 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 and during his talks. But this was silent. So I am told that I wasn't a good videographer because I would zoom in and out. I would zoom to catch his smile or his motion of his hands. And I really enjoyed it. Prabhupada, at the end of his lecture, there was kirtan, which often happened. And during the middle of the kirtan, he took over leading the kirtan, which sometimes he would do. And I am videoing this. And everyone is really ecstatic. So now everything's done, and I have the opportunity. I'm going to show Srila Prabhupada this new technology and what I'm doing, and I'm really excited. And I brought it in, and we set it up, and Srila Prabhupada is watching and seeing, and I'm not sure, I think I must have fast-forwarded it a bit. But what really struck me from that, my memory of it, is that when we came to the part where the kirtan is going on and Srila Prabhupada has taken over the kirtan, I'm looking at him and he's clapping and chanting. He's chanting along. He's getting into the kirtan. He's not thinking, I'm on TV. He's just absorbed in the holy names. That has stayed with me. Prabhupada's absorption in the holy names of Krishna. And that's what it takes to be absorbed in the holy names of Krishna. We have to forget ourselves. We have to put aside our egos and just be absorbed in Krishna. The sound, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, I know I've run out of time now. So I thank you very, very much. And I look forward to seeing you again. And I wish you a very, very successful marathon, distributing Srila Prabhupada's books, teaching people the Maha Mantra, and experiencing the ups and downs of service. I know that as you go, there'll be many times where you're going and say, what am I doing here? But at the end, you'll realize, I've done something. I've done something. Even if there's no result, the effort you put into it is seen by Krishna and Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So we are really thankful to Prabhuji for such a wonderful inspiration about book distribution and also chanting, and most importantly, how we should surrender to Srila Prabhupada. So Prabhuji has really inspired us. So we will thank Prabhuji from core of our heart by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. His Grace Pancaratna Prabhuji ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki